Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Saturday, April 21st. Hope everyone's having a good weekend so far. Thanks for tuning in to the late edition. Let's get started with some space weather news first. Right now our solar wind speeds are on the decline at 535.5 kilometers per second with a density of 5.7. Checking out our sun, AR2706 is growing but does not yet pose any threats for strong solar flares, and we'll check out the solar influx here just a little bit. Sunspot number 14. Taking a look at our KP indices, we're sitting at a 1 and a 24-hour max is at a 3, which tells us that we are no longer in storm conditions. And as we look at our star on the SDO, let's go ahead and put that into motion here. And we see no new coronal holes forming, large ones anyway. There is a little bit of disturbance up in the northern part of the sun, but other than that, nothing major. But here is AR26 or AR2706. This is the sunspot that they are watching, and I don't know if you just saw that, but there was a little bit of a flare that was released there. Here, I'll go ahead and circle that so you can see it. There's a minor one there, and so let's go ahead and take a look at the solar proton influx. Scroll up here, folks. Bear with me here. All right, so looking at the solar proton flux, we haven't had anything more than a C, maybe a strong B, minor C class flare, but nothing other than nothing more than a B really in the last 24 hours. So we'll keep our eyes on that sunspot that is growing right now. Taking a look at our TSI recordings, we did have a reading of 1360.628, and that was recorded on the 13th of April. So one thing that I've noticed, it's been quite a while since we've seen the 1361 TSI reading. So after tonight's show, I think that's something I'm going to go back and look and see when the last time that we were at a consistent consecutive days at 1361, because as of right now, we've seen quite a bit of 1360 and under. And our first article, I just wanted to cover something real quick. Just seeing that there's more and more articles now being published on the internet that has to deal with our next solar cycle and of course the minimum. But this article reads, no question the sun has been behaving very oddly. First we had drawn out cycle number 23, whose sunspot minimum was deeper and more free of spots than any that we ever observed. When the new solar cycle 24 finally began in 2008, nearly 2 years behind schedule, solar experts wondered if the odd behavior would continue. It has indeed, and we had a stake in the outcome. Now they go on to talk about the book Sun's Heartbeat that he wrote in 2011. Global temperatures are now steadily high, and that even a recent reduced rate of warming, 2010, still managed to join 1998 as the warmest years ever recorded, which is not true. If the upcoming solar max of cycle 24 is normal or robust, especially if an El Nino follows it 2 years later, often happens in the middle of this decade, will be the hottest period since humans arrived on Earth. Again, another false statement. However, if the upcoming maximum is wimpy, as most solar researchers expect, or if the sun is now entering an extended period of low activity, another deep minimum to follow, that is the best thing it could possibly do for us. Such a scenario would mitigate climate change. Essentially, the sun has been buying us time. Now, I don't know if journalism today, if they really let the people that work for them actually do their own research. The warmest period of all time on this planet is during the medieval times, during the 9th through the 14th century. By the way, our CO2 levels were at 270 ppm back then, and those were the hottest periods of all time on Earth. Okay, that never came close to what we've seen in 98. The CO2 right now is 408 ppm, I believe. So with that being said, we should be at the hottest temperatures of all time, correct? No, we're not. And CO2 this is a clear example how CO2 does not affect temperature rise, because in this case we should be almost 70% warmer than we were back in the medieval warming period. And that's not the case. And I've shown many of you several times how the global temp anomaly is now diving as well. We've cooled 0.62 Celsius since February of 2016. I was going to save this next article for last, actually, but looking at this article a little bit closer, I realized just all the disinformation. But here they go to admit that if we are hitting into another minimum, like a grand minimum, they acknowledge the Maunder minimum. They acknowledge the cycles, the sunspot disappear. They acknowledge the cold weather. But this article here is referring that, well, first of all, what's dangerous about this, it's telling people that global cooling is a good thing, and that's not true. Global cooling, what that means, like we talked about last night, longer winters, a little bit colder, also means shorter growing seasons, more extreme weather. So cooling is not good because that shortens your growing seasons, and once that happens, that shortens your food supply over time. And this one's being predicted to be a very deep minimum. Now, here's another lovely article by Caitlin Pierce. And this is an opinion. The Daily Campus. Now, this is a University of Connecticut. I can tell by the mascot here in the top here. And down at the bottom, she leaves an email address, and it's uconn.edu. So this tells me she attends the university. So she starts off on the right page. Our Atlantic Ocean is home to a current called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. That is also sometimes referred as the conveyor belt of the ocean. This current plays a key role in redistribution of heat across the Earth. The AMOC does this by exchanging warm water from the equator with cold water from the Arctic. According to new two studies, scientists are saying that this Atlantic Ocean current that helps to regulate global climate has reached a 1,000-year low. Currently, scientists are at odds trying to decipher what is causing this slowdown in current, but they are saying within certainty that it could mean bad news for our climate. The AMOC is being disrupted by melting ice, which is causing larger volumes of fresh water to flow through the oceans. A key part of overturning the circulation is formation of dense water. David Thornley, a geologist at the University of College London, says the problem is that fresh water isn't very dense. It stops you forming in those dense waters. The melt water from the Greenland ice sheet is much less dense and floats on the surface of the ocean, effectively disrupting the ocean circulation. The disruption in the ocean circulation is very bad news. Some scientists are even saying the influx of fresh water into the ocean could cause the current to stop altogether. Now, Thornley compared this to a premise of the 2004 The Day After Tomorrow. The movie focuses on climatologists, blah, 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 blah. We'll skip that. But scientists are even more worried about the possibility of the stopping of this current. Evidence from the past suggests that it actually did happen during the last ice age, and it is possible that it could happen in the future. So, because people choose to believe in global warming is fake news and decide it's not their duty to clean and protect our environment, we could end up with another ice age, possibly within our lifetime. This is obviously an extreme case, and scientists are considering it very unlikely at the moment, but it almost feels like a threat. It's almost as if they are saying that this catastrophe is possible if we continue down the path that we are headed. Now listen to this. I personally would like to stop this from happening. He's talking about global cooling. Mostly because I don't want our generation to be the one to give the Earth's final push and to collapse our ecosystem and destroy our climate. Scientists are currently monitoring the AMOC and trying to decipher the tipping point which our system will no longer be able to recover quickly. If you're anything like me, this news is a freak out, an anxiety attack, fear-filled response. It also made me hyper aware that one of the ways to prevent this horrific future from happening is by doing anything and everything possible to stop global warming. According to Thornley, preventing the AMOC slowdown relies heavily on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, yet another reason to counteract global warming. Okay, so this lovely student here at University of Connecticut is obviously not paying attention in class. Where to start? Well, first of all, we've got one article that says that global cooling is a good thing for us. And then you read this article, and she's actually quoting a supposed real scientist that this is very bad news. Then this scientist goes on to accuse me and you and everybody else on this planet that if we don't do something to stop global warming, we're going to be in an ice age. In other words, these global warmist scientists are now accepting the fact that we are cooling. Okay? They're accepting the fact that we are cooling, but they don't want to swallow their pride. So now it's all Greenland's fault for melting all this ice into the ocean. That's putting fresh water into the conveyor belt. That's going to stop the disruption. And it's because of global warming. It's because of all that ice melting in Greenland. Well, let me show you how much ice we have melting, folks. In fact, you're going to find this is really surprising, actually. This is the United States. And I've got this set from March 1st to March. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go. Where was the other one at? It was this one. Bear with me, folks. I want to show you something else real quick. Let's go here. This is interesting to me. I found this, of course, months ago, but I haven't really looked at it until after the winter's over. And I wanted to show everybody, and here I'm going to get my circle out. Pay attention to up here. Take a look at this. Scoot it up just a little bit more. Look at that. That ice is regrowing. Now, it does see a little bit of a retreat in early March. Look at this, guys. That yellow is indicating ice growth. It's filling back up around Greenland. And then, of course, we do get a little bit of a thaw right here in March. But as we go through the middle of March, we got a little bit of resistance, a little bit of melting, and then it starts to grow again towards the end of March. Now, I'm trying to figure out where all this ice melt is coming from that these folks are claiming. And let's go ahead and take a look at a different region so we can see it very clearly, what we're looking at here. Because now global warming people are blaming the melting ice from Greenland causing global warming, or I'm sorry, global cooling. This is going to be the blame. And I'm going to put that circle because I want you to watch around the latitude line of 60. Watch how that ice fills up that area almost completely. It's bare in the beginning of the winter of January, and it grows so much through February. Look, it almost closes that blue gap between Greenland's west coast. And then as we get into the end of February, we start to see that ice line go around the southern tip. And like I said, it does make a little bit of a retreat here in the beginning of March. You see it recede back a little bit. But then when you get to March 20th, it starts growing again and continues to grow. That's at March 30th. So I'm a little puzzled here. These global warmist people can't keep their stories straight. They're bouncing back and forth. This lady here, she's telling people that global cooling is a bad, bad thing. And then you go to this article, and they're saying in this article here that global cooling is a good thing. Both of these websites support global warming. They both support man-made global warming. And therefore, I have to believe they just don't understand the science and how all this works. There's some more disappointing news, folks. And this is what we got to watch out for in the future as well when these events become more frequent. The headline reads, Hawaii rescue boat operator accused of demanding money from flood victims. When the heavy rainstorms hit Hawaiian island of Kauai, teams and volunteers climbed in their boats and got to work rescuing those who found themselves trapped. But some of those rescued said they were the victims of a scam when they were told to either pay up or be left stranded. The police got involved. suspicion. This man, they caught him. He was a 33-year-old. They're getting him of suspicion of extortion, robbery, terroristic threats. He's not been formally charged. But this happened, from what I understood, $200 a head, cash or credit. We're going to leave you here, is what he said. He would drive them off into the ocean, away from the island, and make this announcement. I mean, you know, talk about taking advantage of the situation. And my only fear is, and this is where this is just such a minor situation right now, where this is just an extreme event. I haven't heard of this yet. I'm sure it happens other parts of the world, but this is the first time I've heard of a U.S. territory having this kind of scam being pulled on such a tragic situation. And I think many channels here on the Grand Solar Minimum community have reported on the floods here in Hawaii and how devastating. In fact, the stats come back in. It's a lot worse than what they originally thought. So this is the kind of thing that's unfortunate that we're going to have to watch out for as well in the future. God help us if we are ever caught in a disaster situation and our rescuer tries to pull this stunt, because I might just have to take the boat from him. Go ahead and check out Sky News. Weather warning and risk of flooding as heat wave comes to end. Yellow warnings for thunderstorms are issued as it remains warm. Runners warned that the London Marathon could be the hottest ever. The East Midlands and Northeast and Northwest England and parts of Yorkshire, Humberside, and Wales are forecasted to see some flooding of homes and businesses. The Met said this could lead to damaged buildings and structures, both from the volume of water and lightning between 4 p.m. Saturday today and 3 a.m. Sunday. Motorists were also warned about the risks from driving in possible heavy rains. Sky Weather presenter Joe Edwards, we've seen temperatures close to 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's very, very warm, especially for this region of the world. The yellow warning tonight is for rain. Some torrential downpours could deposit an inch or so of rain in a short order. I can tell you right now, to an area that traditionally gets a lot of rain already, dropping an inch overnight, that's a quick amount. You got to watch for flash flooding, possible flood watching through all the night tonight. I'm sure some creeks and rivers are going to rise. But just to show you, Grand Solar Minimum is not all about cold and snow and ice. There's times where you have to deal with the heat, and sometimes when you deal with the heat, you're going to deal with heavy moisture from storms, and with the increase of cosmic rays, you are going to have a lot of precipitation. Maybe this rainstorm normally would bring 1/4 of an inch of rain. Now we're expecting anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half. So again, that has everything to do with cosmic ray influx. I wanted to show you guys really quick too. There's 2 parts of the country this week that are talking about this. We've got here in Chicago, more spring snow in Chicago. Forecasters call April start among the coldest in 130 years. April on track to be the coldest in 143 years. This is in Detroit. It's not ironic that these two cities are experiencing the coldest weather in 100+ years. Dalton minimum was 1800s. This all lines up. And what really strikes me when I see these headlines in the news is, officially, we're not into the Grand Solar Minimum. We're descending into the Grand Solar Minimum. Cycle 25 will be here in 2019. And thanks to the Starman for his presentation on his video. I think he makes it really clear we're looking for the start of 25 is a consistency of reverse polarity of these sunspots in the northern part of the equator of the sun. So we're descending into the solar minimum, and we're already breaking records that are over 125, 143 years old. So I thought that would be something interesting to point out as well. And of course, this right here, this doesn't get old anyway. This spectacular mountain route of Japan was reopened on Sunday after being closed for 5 months during the winter, and expects to receive 1 million visitors. Look at this. This is 6 stories high. I think it's 17 meters. 17 meters. For us here in the U.S., that's 6 stories. Look at the sky, folks. Beautiful sun. cosmic rays, cloud nucleation going on under the sun. Gorgeous sky. The large white walls are located in Bordeaux. The highest point of the en route was altitude of 2450 meters. The walls are different every year. This year they are very beautiful, says a 75-year-old native from the area. Those who come to see the walls of snow every year on the opening day, this route, confess that the landscape does not seem to belong to Japan. No matter how many times I look at it, it always seems like a beautiful landscape, he says. This is truly incredible. I couldn't imagine standing in the middle of this, looking around at these snow walls. And this kind of this kind of snow buildup here is dug out with heavy machinery, no doubt in my mind. But just an amazing sight. And this is something that happens here all the time. This has nothing to do, well, it might a little bit, but this is a common thing where people come to this area this time of the year to see these humongous snow walls that have been created from the dig out. What's up with that? We'll talk more about Arctic ice like you've never seen it before. Settle down. It may not be that much, but it is a lot. This came to me via tip, but to be honest, I get so many daily emails and comments, I've lost the original source of the tip. How unfortunate. This is via the Canadian Ice Service, and it's a view I have not seen before. It shows a polar view looking down at the North Pole, which is a composite of several days worth of modest views from NASA Goddard to create a composite of the Arctic image. The actual image is very high resolution. I can't show it fully here, but the detail is quite good. I'm not going to read any more. This was more for just pictures. This kind of backs up the ice graph that I was showing you guys just a little bit ago. So I'm still baffled when I hear researchers talk about all this up here melting away. All of it's gone. And yet I see so much snow and ice cover, it's not funny. All right. Enough dwelling. So, with that being said, I think we have... Oh, we got the meteor shower. Maury mentioned that last night. Lyrid meteor shower peaks tonight and tomorrow. We will see at the peak 20 meters an hour. The Lyrids are one of the oldest known meteor showers observed for at least the last 2,700 years. They are known for their fast and bright meteors that frequently leave glowing dust trails observable for several seconds. These meteors are best viewed from a northern hemisphere during dark hours after moonset and before dawn. People in the southern hemisphere can also see the shower, but at a lower rate. And if you guys want to check this out, link is in the description. Go to the Watchers. They always bring us awesome news about space, our climate, our volcanoes and earthquakes, and everything that we need to know that we don't get to know because mainstream doesn't seem to want to cover. All right, let's go ahead. But first, before I go into this, Mari, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
It's good to hear. How's our chat? Everybody?
The chat is just how I like it. Peaceful, calm, and respectful.
Well, it is Saturday night.
I love it. It's just so
Saturday night
so
live.
Therapeutic. I could be in here and be like, hey.
Less comedy, but still Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Well,
great.
This forecast isn't going to be funny for some of you. I know we've been talking about this low pressure system. You guys need the rain here in Texas, further east or west as well. I've looked at some of the models, and the one thing that's changed about this storm is not how much rain is going to drop, but the direction of it. Look at this low pressure system just kind of rake the east coast, and now it's bringing rain into the northeast by the 25th. Now, we were only supposed to see right where my cursor is right here, this weaker system like this moving through, but the GFS is now suggesting that this storm is going to go up the east coast, and that's two back-to-back low-pressure systems, folks. Look at this one right here. The tail end of the one that's raking the east coast now, this region right here in the south, it goes back out into the Atlantic and swings back in and up into New England. Once again, another low-pressure system. I mean, you can see the rotation of these things. So this forecast actually is going to be a little bit wetter. And I'll go ahead and show you how much wetter here just in a second. But I'm moving this all the way out to the 3rd to the 4th of May, all the way out to the 7th, and this is funky here. By the 7th of May, we have a storm system that goes from New England all the way up into the northern plains, and then you've got the northwest that's going to be inundated with moisture as well. But to go back to the storm that we're going to have to go through this week, into the weekend, into the next week, this did intensify slightly. So we will see rain in areas that we weren't originally expected to see, a little bit heavier into the northeast. Another system hitting the south as that one leaves the coast by Friday. And then in the Midwest, we have another system move through Ohio Valley, Pennsylvania. You're going to get some precipitation out of this into, of course, New York again and New England. And then right as that leaves the coast, by the beginning of the following week, we have more rain developing across the country. And this is what I like. This is the best part of the forecast, really, right now that I've seen so far, right here. Starting on April 28th, look at East Texas. This area in New Mexico, Colorado, this area needs the rain so bad right now. And I'm glad to report that we will finally start to see some rain chances coming to that part of eastern Texas. And I'll go ahead and go through it one more time. Right there, we get a little heavy precipitation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's my fault, Jake.
So we get a little heavy precipitation here. Right there on the 25th, some more rain. And then again on the 28th, East Texas gets more scattered showers. And through the 29th, more rain develops in the middle of Texas. So it's not quite reaching most of the areas that need it. But look here, on the 1st of May, we're looking at some heavy precipitation in northern Texas, near the panhandle of Oklahoma, eastern Texas, central Texas. So we're starting to get a little bit more moisture in that region, but not quite far enough west to help that extreme drought and fire situation that we're having. But looking into the future, May looks to be a wet one as well. Temperature-wise, though, we are going to be right on the money as far as spring-like temperatures, I can say. And I'll go ahead and put this into fast-forward motion. But I wanted to bring out those articles earlier that I shared with you guys, the one about the University of Connecticut student. And I did email her. I wrote out an email, and I asked her to take a look at some other data, and I asked her to take a look at CO2 and how it doesn't have an effect on the temperature rise. And I gave her some examples of the medieval times and stuff like that. As I sent the message, I got an email immediately back to my account stating that that was an invalid email address. So I don't know if it was done intentionally or, it was a mistake. But either way, I find it a little funny that I had some questions and maybe present some data. I think it's important. These kids that are in college and high school right now, these teachers and professors are teaching our children that man is responsible for the climate, that man is causing, now they're blaming man for causing global cooling. Because of the global warming that man caused, we're now going to have man-made global cooling. That's going to be the new one now. You watch. So, we have to somehow reach out to the youth right now. We've got to break this trend that we've been seeing here from people who believe that man is responsible for climate change. The younger they are, the easier it's going to be for this to sink in. So the older they get, they're always going to think it's global warming. It's global warming. I think a lot of us came to this community thinking the same thing. We all probably were at one point. Global warming was the problem. Now, I've always had this weird feeling about ice ages and cooling. I've always had an infatuation with snow and cold weather. And sometimes I think I was just going against the grain in my younger days by saying ice age because everybody was saying global warming. But how funny now that I think back, where I was that guy that was talking about ice age, and I really didn't know. It was just more of a hunch, because everybody else, normally, if everybody else is saying it's one thing, sometimes the logic is to go against what everybody else is doing. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Mari, did you want to say anything before I head off?
No, I think you answered most everyone's questions in the chat, just with the weather and stuff. So, You know,
It's going to be spring. I can tell you that. In the United States, I think people were expecting a snowstorm. Zoe, I don't think that's going to happen. I'll be shocked if we get another winter storm.
Jerry put. So are they going to blame CO2 for cooling? Well, Jerry, that's exactly what they're doing right now. They are blaming mankind and all our horrible actions, turning CO2 into the atmosphere. That is now turned from global warming to global cooling. That's why they switched the narrative to climate change.
Yep.
Because it doesn't, global warming didn't suit their narrative, and they don't feel right going right into global cooling. They don't want to admit that there is a natural cycle. They just want to say it's climate change and it's your fault. Basically, they want to place that blame on people for monetary gain, of course, because if it's your fault, you, of course, should have to pay. That is what it's about. That's the game they're playing, and, with this community, obviously, no one's being fooled here, and we're calling it out.
Well, and we just, all we can do is keep showing the facts and showing that CO2 rise has nothing to do with temperature rise. But yeah, eventually I'm sure they will find a way to say that CO2 is causing the cooling. And, the cloud coverage, cloud nucleation, the cosmic ray influx, that plays a very, very, very important part of it. And just refer back to the basic science, guys. Look at Heinrich Svenmark's work. Take a look at that. Look at Dr. Jasper Kirkby. That's the stuff that we base our information off of as far as when it comes to cosmic rays and cloud nucleation. And a beautiful example, if you guys go to Jake GSM, that's my other channel, that's my personal channel. I took some small video and showed the clouds in the sky. You wouldn't believe what it looked. They almost looked like they were noctilucent clouds at times today. But the sky was filled with cloud nucleation and a thin, waxy paper-looking film around the sun that almost looked like it was, covering the sun up. But it's perfect example, cosmic rays interacting with particles in our atmosphere and creating cloud nucleation. And it just gave an effect. It was really, truly a great display of what cosmic rays do to our atmosphere. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in to the late edition. We appreciate it. We will be back on the air on Monday for 7:30 Eastern Time. We may do a Sunday live stream chat. It might happen. If it does, it'll be in the daytime. If not, we'll just see you guys on Monday. We'll talk soon, guys.